I am a music YouTuber, so obviously I believe in the power of the internet to learn. But my question for you is, in 2024, can you make a career in music, or more specifically music production, without a formal education of some kind? I also reached out to a few friends to get their perspective. Most of the people that I grew up with making music were not formally trained, but when I asked a lot of my friends that I've met recently, most seem to have some kind of background in music. But I do get asked a lot, kids coming out of high school wondering if they should study music, and nowadays I'm talking to parents who are wondering if they should send their kid to music school. My first question is always, how much money do you got? No secret. All education, the prices are ridiculous. I cannot believe how much college costs now versus when I went in 2002 is when I finished. I did not study music in school. I took one class. They were starting a music program at my college, but yeah, no formal training for me. Now, if your aspirations are to be a violinist in the New York Philharmonic, that's your dream, you probably need to go to school. But music production is different, and my research tells me that most YouTube videos say, don't go to school, it's a ripoff, buy a microphone, buy a laptop, buy an interface, and watch this playlist, and buy my course. By the way, I am working on a course. Years ago, like almost 20, I freelanced at a studio called Maximedia in Dallas, Texas. Massive place, multiple rooms, SSL consoles, Neve consoles, all of that. Eventually, it closed down like most studios, and a school came in called MediaTek. One day I got a call from a friend who was saying that MediaTek was looking for a production instructor, a music production instructor, and I had never done that, but the place that I was in life, it made a lot of sense to give it a try. I'll admit the first few semesters were bumpy, but once I kind of figured it out, I realized how much I enjoyed teaching. Eventually, writing music for production music libraries became a bigger part of my income, and I didn't have as much time to teach. I have no regrets, but I do miss teaching students, especially the ones who were very serious about learning. One of my first students, Josh Franklin, he helped out on the mallet drum sampling day. Well, he is now an instructor at MediaTek, along with one of my best friends in the world, Wes Martin, who went from being an instructor to now he's running the place day to day. I sat down with the two of them to get their thoughts and perspective on a more formal, systematic education. I don't know how to sit.
I don't either. Can I?
Me either.
Well, Wes, what's your job here?
Managing Director, Dallas and Houston campuses of MediaTek.
Josh, what do you do here?
I'm an instructor here, and I'm also the chairman for the Recording Arts Department.
The topic of this video is, in 2024, should you study music? And in this case, should you study music production? If someone that you cared about was 19 years old and thinking about what it is that they wanted to do, they knew they wanted to do music, what do you say to them?
I tell them what my dad told me, which is, if you want to get good at something, surround yourself with people who are better than you at that. And that can look like a lot of different things, but that's one of the great advantages of a school like MediaTek. You are surrounded with an amazing facility, equipment, and really important, the instructors who are and become your mentors. You develop relationships with them. What we offer, recording arts degree, learning it from the ground up, not missing anything, and being confident that, you know what, am I learning what I'm supposed to be learning, and why do I need to be learning this? You can ask all these questions with your instructors, and they guide you that whole way. A lot of people find confidence in that training and really mentorship.
Josh here was one of my first students. When the place was open, he was there. He was trading people for studio time to make it work. What are some of the characteristics of the students that really took advantage of the programs, really took advantage of the teaching, and found success outside of the school because of that?
Obviously, they didn't know how to do this. That's why they came here to learn it. Yeah. They were determined. They set a goal. And no matter what, they saw it through. They graduated.
Josh, as someone who has the perspective of student and instructor, what do you say about studying music production?
I know what it did for me. I was in music for a while and in and out of studios with a band and all that kind of stuff for a few years before I ever got into this part of it. It changed the trajectory of my entire life, coming to a music production school like this. I think it requires a lot of initiative and a lot of will. Those are the ones that, as an instructor, stand out to me. And then kind of to y'all's point earlier of spending the time, that's the one thing that nobody can do that part for you.
Yeah.
I think places like this are phenomenal, and you'll get out of it whatever you decide to put into it.
Opportunities are invisibly connected to people. That's another great reason, especially here at MediaTek, that yes, you can learn, but those relationships turn into opportunities that go on.
Back in March, we launched Somerville Sounds. Hunter Rogerson and Owen Bolig are part of this with me. For some reason, I thought they didn't study music production in school, but I was wrong. All right, you might recognize these folks. This is Somerville Sounds crew. We've got Hunter and Owen. Say hello, guys.
Howdy.
Hello.
We were talking about other things non-related to school, and I mentioned the topic of this video, and both these guys had very interesting stories about school. So I thought it would be great to hear their experiences on school and offer some insight as to how they might approach learning if they weren't able to go to school. So, Owen, tell me about your experience.
I went to undergrad for mechanical engineering, but I went to get my master's in audio engineering. I don't think degrees necessarily get you jobs. You can utilize your time at school by becoming close with your professors, meeting with them outside of class, and retaining that relationship with them even after you graduate. I go out to eat with a professor I've had. He is Dr. Eric Tarr. He was the person that got me my first job in the field. I even went to career services and I asked for help from them, and I never got a job, but I did get a job just from being close with my professors. In America, colleges and universities get a lot of deserved criticisms as like establishments, but from my experience, the people within it, the professors, are very frequently incredible people. They are very knowledgeable and caring. I started becoming close with professors because of my learning disability, because I got extra time on test. So I had to meet with them outside of class to take my test. And me being put in that position actually made me have the realization that, like, even if I didn't have a learning disability, that is a very important thing to do to get the most out of education, is to have a personal relationship with the instructors.
Hunter, your schooling experience.
It was really good. It wasn't good because it qualified me with the appropriate skills and the right connections. It was good because it was broad and communal. It provided me a lot of things that I couldn't do on my own, which is be in a room full of musicians who are better than me, and like what that does to your brain chemistry and the way that you think about music. And like, it adds a depth to the challenges that you're putting in front of yourself that will, sharpen your blade, so to speak. Then also the fact that it was schooling, there were a bunch of people there to learn. An environment full of learners also shifts your sort of, your direction, the way that you think. And, taking classes on geology and learning what a subduction event was and how old our continents are, and like taking ethics classes and poetry classes. Like I think the more you understand and are engaged in life, the better you will be at whatever your craft is. And in my case, it's music. The deeper your understanding of your craft, the better you're going to be at it. And it seemed like a chain of events that led to the realization that music is just synonymous with life. And the more you engage with life, the better. And being in an environment that is all about learning and all about being around creative and aggressively curious people makes you better at what you do. The flip side of it is that I would then, after all these communal experiences, scurry away into some place where no one could reach me, and then work, and then build the skills that I needed to build in the way that I wanted to, which is where like the modern take on this, which is what I still do today with like things like Blender, things like sampling, like most of this stuff I learned by myself through trial and error, YouTube tutorials, online forums. That stuff you don't have to pay a cent for. And if you're exclusively interested in just building the skills that you are interested in, you can do it. Like right now, if you've got internet service, you can just start doing it. So both of those things have been exceedingly true for me. Because school ends, but learning doesn't.
I put a question out to Twitter X a few months ago asking about your experience as an instructor. And my friend Sam Ekoff wrote back this really compelling email about his experience as an instructor. So I wanted to get him on this video to share his thoughts.
For years, introduced myself as someone who writes music for TV shows because I'm in the production music world. And then maybe if the conversation progressed, I would also say, oh, and I also teach music lessons. That's just part of what I do. And I make 70% of my living now on a royalty check from writing production music. And I could really do that for my living, and that could be the whole picture. But 5 years ago, I had tonsil cancer. And there's nothing like a brush with, being forced to face your own mortality to kind of make you reconsider what's important in life. And I stopped writing completely during that time because I was literally going to the hospital every day for appointments with pain doctors, getting radiation treatments, meeting with the surgeon for follow-ups, all kinds of stuff like that. Not the kind of thing you want to do with your time. But the thing that I didn't do is I didn't stop teaching. Even on my weakest day where I could barely get out of bed because I couldn't eat because I had cancer in my throat, and it was so painful with the radiation that I was down to 133 pounds. My body ate itself. And I barely could get out of bed, but I almost never missed a day of teaching. So my students were what got me out of bed in the morning, because I came to this realization that if I end tomorrow, my publisher is going to find somebody else that can do my job. Yeah, maybe they're going to be a little bit sad because they're not going to make money off of me anymore. But at the same time, they're going to replace me pretty quickly. But the people in this world who are really going to miss me, besides hopefully my family, are my students. And that they are the people who kind of got me out of bed in the morning and made me feel like, no, I got to do this. I got to get to the conservatory. I got to teach these kids because they're counting on me. And when I first was diagnosed, I had all these regrets, and you really start to look at your life. And I said to my wife, I've spent years of my life. I mean, it's been 26 years now in this little windowless 10 by 10 room at the conservatory teaching all these kids. And, I can't believe I spent all that time in there. And I wasted my life. And my wife said, you didn't waste your life. I mean, you've got to think about, and she started naming off some of my students who've gone on to Juilliard and to Peabody and who are now having their orchestral works premiered all throughout Europe and who are making careers in Hollywood, scoring, major films. And she said, you changed their lives. The time that you spent in that room with them was a defining time in their lives that allowed them to have their dream and to be fulfilled for the rest of their lives. So you can never say you've wasted time. And so now when I introduce myself to people, I talk about things a little bit differently. I always say, I'm a music educator. I teach private music lessons. Oh yeah, and I write music for TV shows. Because it still has that, it seems to carry more weight and more value. But really, when I look at my legacy and I start thinking about what do I want to be remembered for? I want to be remembered as the guy who really impacted some kids' lives. I want to be remembered as the person who opened the door to other people. I want to be remembered as the person who allowed other people to get their dream in this world, and hopefully through that made the world a better place.
Do you have thoughts for the 18-year-old kid or the 19-year-old kid who's trying to figure out what it is they want to do and they're considering music school?
I coach kids all the time who are considering and weighing out doing a music degree. And I find that I not only talk to the kids, but I'm also spending a lot of time talking to their parents. And I know for my parents, my dad was a high school science teacher, hard science guy. My mom was a nurse. And so the scariest thing that I ever said to them was probably, I think I'm going to be a musician and a composer. And I know as a parent, that was the scariest thing that my kid ever said to me. And since then, he's moved on and he's doing an electrical engineering degree, which is great. But at the same time, what I tell parents is that it's really important that kids get an opportunity to pursue their passion and to pursue their dreams. And so often I hear from people who are employers, because I teach adults and I'm out in the community, and people will tell me, I have people who are working in my business who have a music degree, and my business isn't music related at all. And so these days, it isn't necessarily you get a music degree, you're going to go into the world of music. Maybe you're going to end up someplace else, and that's okay. That's really okay. I think college is really important because it gives you time to mature. As an 18-year-old, most people are not ready to be out into the cold, cruel world and trying to, chart their life's course. This is a hard thing. So when you're 18, you're 19, typically you don't have a house payment, you don't have a car payment, you typically don't have kids. And so you suddenly don't have all these attachments that we have as adults. And you actually don't have much. And so you really don't have that much to lose by trying to pursue your dreams. And the worst thing that's going to happen is you get 3-4 years in and you come to realize, hey, this is harder than I thought. This isn't really what I want to do. So yes, you've lost 3 or 4 years, but at the same time, if you feel like, hey, I want to go back and get a nursing degree or teaching degree, whatever, that's fine. You can still do that. But you've pursued your dream, which is a really, really important thing. So you don't end up an old fart like me saying, hey, if only I had done this. I wanted to do this, but I never did it. Regrets that's a hard thing. And I can tell you as somebody who's had cancer, regrets are a hard thing too. So you really want to think, live your life in a way that you feel like I went for it. Maybe it didn't happen, but I still gave it my best go. So I think that those are really important things to understand about the whole college thing and should you do a music degree. But there's another aspect to this too. And one of the things I talk to students about when they're looking for music schools is I say you absolutely have to go while school is in session because A, you need to meet the professors, you need to sit in on some classes, but most important of all, you need to find out the quality of students that are there. I was really fortunate. I did my undergraduate degree at the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire, and the standards there were really, really high. I didn't realize it at the time, but we were all being held to this incredibly high standard of performance. And I've seen the people who were my classmates at that time go on to doing things like scoring major video games. One of my classmates scored the latest Star Wars Xbox game. And they have gone on to being Grammy-nominated teachers. And they are the people who are the new researchers and the educators, and they're performing in major orchestras. And those were my classmates. And when everybody is achieving at this incredibly high level, when the bar is really high, you find yourself rising to the occasion and realizing, I need to step it up. I got to practice more. I got to spend more time studying. I really need to know this stuff. Everybody else knows this. I need to do this too. Compare and contrast with the second school that I went to. I will not name it, but it was an audio engineering school. And I discovered I was in there with every high school dropout whose mommy and daddy had a lot of money and wanted them to go and get a degree of some sort. And I found myself in classes where the professors were saying, this is a mouse. When you move the mouse, the cursor was on the screen. And it was really, really, really painful because they were teaching for the students who were there. And as I'm looking around the room, as this is going on, the people are like, oh, I gotta write that down. It was like, holy cow, my goodness. So you have a situation where the kind of student that's there, the quality of student that's there, will really impact your experience and will be the thing that either causes you to rise to the occasion or to just be mediocre, realizing this is all I have to do. I can get by. I can just do a little bit and it'll be fine. Yeah. And one of the things that I notice about people who do what we do is that we tend to be, all of us composers tend to be people who really went for it and made our own experiences and dove deep and went the extra mile every single time we could. And because we had all these extra experiences, we came out of those educational times in our life with a lot more experience and a lot more knowledge and a lot more skills than those who kind of just did the minimum and coasted along the whole way. So I think being at a school and just going to school and being around other people who are really passionate about what you do, people who are amazing musicians and who will force you to raise your game, I think that that's just golden. I think that that is a great way to start anybody's career.
Like I mentioned earlier, I didn't go to school to study music, but I did intern at a studio, which was somewhat similar in that I was surrounded by a lot of people who were there to help me, and I could help and find that community, people I still work with to this day. That kind of situation is a little more difficult to find now. Most of us have retreated to our home studios, and it's kind of hard now to find those places to go and get people coffee and learn the trade. Schools might be the only places around these days where we can get that peer interaction with those that we're learning with and be surrounded by people who have done it for years. But also to reiterate, schools, all of them are expensive. So what should you do, or what should you do for your son or daughter? If you can afford it, go to school. Enjoy it. The best advice I can give is if you are going to school, do the research. Find the school that makes sense for what it is that you want to pursue. If school's not for you and you can't figure out a way to make it happen, you can absolutely pursue a career in music. But you're going to have to be a little more aggressive and seek out the people that you want to work with. Figure out ways to get in the room. I'm a big believer in higher education. Do I think the system is broken in many ways? Yeah, I think we can all agree it's a little messed up. I'd love to get your thoughts on school and how you think we can fix it, or if it can be fixed. But there's something special about a room full of students that want to learn and educators who have the experience and understand how to meet those students where they are, inspire them on a journey in music, which I personally am so grateful for. And I imagine if you're still watching this video after however long it is, then you probably feel the same way. Let me know your thoughts. Talk soon.